Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Brian Mast absolutely obliterates Margaret Brennan, yes, the I don't care Margaret, on Face the Nation, and just completely dunks on her on what's happening with USAID. But before we dive in, a quick shout out over to our sponsors over at American Alternative Assets, but more on that later. Now, let's dive in.
You know, there is a free trade agreement with Mexico and Canada. President Trump negotiated it during his first term. The tariffs may violate that deal. If he's invoking tariffs on a national security basis, can you explain the threat posed by Canada?
Yeah, and he was President Trump, that is to say, was very specific in his executive order outlined that it's specifically related to fentanyl. It's specifically related to human trafficking. And there's a trust but verify situation that
Through
has
Canada?
to go on here through Canada as well. Absolutely. Fentanyl through Canada, human trafficking through Canada, also with China in that mix for fentanyl as well. That was specifically outlined in it. And until that comes to an end, this is what's going to be on the table. And bear in mind as well that USMCA reauthorization is coming up in the coming up months and years.
So you don't believe that this violates the trade agreement, the treaty?
The violation has been to the United States of America. It's been to our sovereignty. It's been
Right,
to
but
our
Congress
people.
votes
It's
on
been
these
taken
things,
for granted. And I will make sure, certainly as the Foreign Affairs Chairman, that we give every single authority as we go through State Department reauthorization to make sure that this moves forward, as well as purging of people throughout the State Department, other agencies, where we're freezing aid. These are all very important and necessary steps to make sure that we secure America, and we're going to support that.
I'm sorry, can I follow up on what you just said there? You
Please
want to
do.
authorize purging of State Department personnel? What does that mean exactly?
Well, if you want to take a look at the State Department, where DEI has been a priority over, let's say, diplomacy in many accounts, I could give you hundreds of examples
What
of where they
proof
were
do you have of
authorizing.
that?
Sure, let's list them off. $500,000 to expand atheism in Nepal, $50,000 to do, let's see, a transgender opera in Colombia, $47,000 to do an LGBTQ trans comic book in Peru, $20,000 a pop to do drag shows in Ecuador. Shall I continue with more examples of where DEI
It
was the
certainly
priority?
seems like there could be a review of things. Foreign aid, as you know, is less than 1% of the entire federal budget. So we're talking small amounts of money by comparison.
We're still talking about tens and tens of billions of dollars. And if you want to go to somebody else on the other side of the aisle, Samantha Powers, she had a worthy goal, although it was a stupid goal. She said she was hoping to get the amount of foreign aid, U.S. aid dollars that go to actual aid, up to 30 cents on the dollar from 10 cents on the dollar. That's a major problem, that we have this agency that's all that goes abroad when it's the American worker's dollar.
I think now you're talking about the USAID, the aid
Yes.
Agency, which is separate from the State Department currently and has about $40 billion worth.
Likely going to be rolled more closely under Secretary.
Yeah, tell me about that, because that's where I was going. Has the Trump administration informed you of plans to dismantle or significantly shrink this agency?
This is something that I'm working on very specifically in conjunction with Secretary Rubio to make sure that there's the appropriate command and control of these agencies, where, again, to make that same point, right now,
they already
maybe
report
10
to Secretary of State.
Cents. But 10 to 30 cents on the dollar is what actually goes to aid. So there's not the right amount of command and control that's going on with the way that it's set up currently. And let's make another point on this as well.
Congress authorizes and earmarks funding.
Most of these dollars that go out of USAID, 70+%, don't come from U.S. growers, U.S. farmers, U.S. ranchers, or go through U.S. ports. And that's another big problem for America.
So I'm sorry, Congress already authorizes and earmarks the funding. Just to be very clear, you're not endorsing getting rid of USAID as a separate department, which already reports to the Secretary of State, are you?
I would be absolutely for, if that's the path we go down, removing USAID as a separate department and having it fall under one of the other parts of United States Department of State because of its failure. I just went over the numbers twice with you in the amount of aid that actually makes it into the hands. I mean, you could almost say this is a little bit hyperbole, but there's probably more dollars that go towards state dinners around the DC Beltway than what actually goes into rice and beans abroad. That's the state of what's going on with USAID. And Samantha Powers said no less herself.
Well, Margaret, I don't really care. Okay, that meme was great by JD Vance, and now Brian Mast is keeping that meme rolling. And I mean, he is just dealing with this answer here because USAID, USAID, which stands for United States Agency for International Development. Well, that doesn't exactly sound like an aid program now, does it? That sounds more like a keeping the United States interests at heart program now, doesn't it? That's what it sounds like to me, but why don't you take the word of people like Elon Musk, who posted on Sunday, according to The Hill, who has been tipped to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, said the agency, the USAID agency, is a criminal organization and it was time for it to die. Oh boy. That's a pretty extreme way to put it. So, is there something wrong with this organization? Is there something nefarious going on? Well, according to the Real Clear Politics site, quoting Cyber Mike Binns, oh, there absolutely is. And as a disciple of Cyber Mike, I tend to listen to what he has to say. So this is what he has to say. So on Joe Rogan, there is no aid on USAID. It is not an aid organization. It stands for the U.S. agency. I've already said that. What it's developing is all the activist organizations in foreign countries that the State Department is building to gain influence. Oh boy. Hey y'all. For the first time in American history, we now spend more on interest payments than our entire defense budget. This isn't speculation, this is mathematical reality. As Trump prepares to enter office, a showdown is brewing that could devastate unprepared Americans' retirement accounts. Here's why that matters for your money. Our national debt has exploded to $36 trillion. Every 1% increase in interest rates adds $90 billion to our current annual costs, more than NASA's entire budget in just additional interest. This creates an impossible situation. If the Fed keeps interest rates high, it crashes the economy. If they cut rates, it risks destroying the dollar. There's no middle ground here because the math simply doesn't work anymore. This is why central banks worldwide have been buying gold at record pace. In 2022 alone, they bought over 1,082 metric tons of gold. They know what's coming. Don't wait until the coming crisis becomes front page news. Get your free guide, Fed vs. Trump, the coming battle for America's financial future. Inside, you'll discover that why this showdown could determine the fate of your retirement savings, and more importantly, how to protect yourself before it's too late. Call 1-800-861-8047 or visit AAAgold.net/brawl to get your free guide. So in other words, it's being used to peddle United States ideology, even propaganda to some point, in order to make some policy happen, and all underneath the table so you don't really see what's going on. He further states, USAID was created to be a central hub that organized all the different foreign clandestine operations. It has a $50 billion budget. The entire intelligence community, comparatively, is only $72 billion. So once $50 billion in order to push international foreign policy and to push our influence further, $50 billion. Whereas the entire intelligence community at home, $72 billion. So it's over a third of what we spend at home. It's barely a third less than what we spend at home. That's pretty impressive now, isn't it? And so these organizations, and Brian Mast is listing off all these things that we're just wasting money on. We're wasting money in Nepal, Peru. Why are we doing this? Well, we've already sort of spelled it out here, and that's to peddle influence. And that is basically used to get certain people jobs and leave other people out to dry, and then to occasionally force governments to bend to a little bit more to our will. And that's a bit creepy, don't you think? In a day and age with social media and with the internet, you'd think that we don't have to really push our weight around now, do we? And furthermore, the Democrats, meanwhile, and particularly Miss Margaret here, is talking about, oh, this is a drop in the bucket. Foreign aid is barely 1%. I don't care. Okay? I don't care, Margaret. Deal with this 1% of a problem, and we can deal with other things. Okay? We can do two things at the same time. We're not all people who can't walk and chew gum at the same time now, aren't we? We can multitask. That's the whole point of bringing Elon Musk on board to begin with. We can multitask from this problem and actually start dealing with these issues. So, the whole reason that Brian Mast is talking about these seemingly drops in a bucket is because, well, we've got a clandestine organization that's peddling U.S. influence, not only kind of wasting our money, but doing things that are probably nefarious behind the scenes. It's time to stop that. And when it comes to American foreign policy, I think there's a bigger picture. Obviously, there's a bigger picture. But the reason we're talking so much about tariffs and trade wars is because we're starting to say, hey, we're seeing how we're influencing your country, and we're going to stop that on one hand, but you need to give us something in return. Is there some economic benefit we can do here? That is the art of the deal. And so far, we're sacrificing money that we're currently wasting in our government to make it harder for other governments around the world to do their jobs. We're peddling U.S. influence and we're going to pull it out, but make sure we get something out of the process. Again, this is what it means to make everyone a little bit safer, everyone less afraid of the United States, while everyone benefiting economically. This is the kind of foreign policy that we so desperately need, and I think the world so desperately deserves. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politbro. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.